are doing it live. This is the 79th edition of the Sports Lounge. I believe last week was the 25th edition of the video version. So you do the math. This will be number 26, and we do them all live. They're all live, and they're all live to tape.
You are looking live.
We are looking live at a dusty old Chicago Cubs hat. Because I'm Travis Kriens. We've got Mr. Roggenkamp here, Wyatt Roggenkamp, nice enough to join us again. We got David Schottenkirk, audio only, so we'll see how that works. It sounds good so far. We've got Marcus Traxler, some nice headphones, supporting the hometown. We got Charlie Hildebrand taking a swig. Plenty of stuff to talk about. We got the red pants. We've got ice. We've got it all. First off,
hey,
Marcus, yes.
Before we get too far away, did you hear that Brett Musburger, he came up with that phrase? Did you hear why he came up with that? You're looking live?
Because they figured it was taped? I don't know.
I forget. He did some sort of interview this week, and he said it was for NFL games for gamblers to get an idea of what the weather would be.
He's a big gambler guy.
He's a big gambler guy. I love that story. I forget where it's from. My apologies for not knowing where it's from, but pretty good story. And since Wyatt brought it up, I figured I'd throw that in.
And here I thought he did it just so he'd convince himself that he was on the air and not supposed to be checking out cheerleaders or something.
You are looking live, so you know if it's rainy at Candlestick, let your bets.
Maybe take the under.
Maybe take the under. Before we get into the sports stuff, Mr. Traxler, what's going on in St. Louis, Missouri? It seems like a mess. The riots, whatnot. Is this a big of a deal, as they say it is?
This is a pretty big deal. I know that we are the Sports Lounge, and we're normally the stick to sports crowd. But
you want sports? You go to the sports block.
Yep.
This is the lounge.
This is the lounge. But yeah,
if you want that Mariana save record, you got to go to the sports block first.
There you go.
In suburban St. Louis last week, you had a police officer a white police officer shoot a black 18-year-old man, and a city that's 2/3 black and has 95% of its police force being white men or white people, that can cause some racial tension, and that's been the case this week. And then you throw in the fact that you've had innocent people being jailed, journalists being jailed. I can see why there's a lot of tension, and it hasn't been handled well up until the last few days. And now it seems like it's died down a little.
There were some riots last night again, with the curfew and...
Right. The curfew has been a problem. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's unfortunate that it took a couple journalists getting arrested for people to really understand. But, I mean, for 72 hours, that city was a police state. And it's just kind of amazing that in 2014 we have that in the United States. It's unbelievable.
You had a guy from the Washington Post and the Huffington Post. They were arrested in a McDonald's. Apparently, the owner wanted them to leave. That's what I've heard a story. So, whether that's true or not, they kind of camped out there covering the goings-on in the city. Was that the first thing that you saw that really piqued your attention? That this is more than just a normal everyday thing?
No, I had seen people talking about it maybe a day before that, or maybe 2 days. I don't remember, but I saw people talking about it, and I sort of read back this history leading back to Michael Brown being shot and killed. And depending on whose stories you believe, there's all kinds of reasons of why that happened and how that unfolded. But being somebody who does journalism on a daily basis. Yeah, the arrests of two journalists did pique my attention.
Yes. Yeah, that's me. Shoot, I didn't hear myself. Releasing the video of the, what do you want to call it, the burglary, not a burglary, but the shoplifting, the same day as they released the name of the officer. I feel that was deliberate to take the attention off of the name of the officer.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think a lot of the decisions that the police force there has made on their own before the Missouri State Police got involved, and you had federal input. A lot of the decisions were probably not real well thought out, or not the right decisions to make. And I think that's only added. I mean, that's really only fueled the fire for a lot of the protesters in Ferguson.
Do you expect to last another week?
Well, wasn't it? It's almost been a week since he was shot, right?
Yeah, this was last Saturday, so it's been 8 days.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect that it will be in the news till the middle of the week, and maybe it will be done by Friday, but I don't know that for sure. I'm too far away, and too far out of the loop to really know.
You're not going to go down there?
I'm not going down there. No, there's no connection to Stickney or Plankinton or.
Vikings open in St. Louis. Chad Greenway.
That's a good point.
That's
a good point. If it's still going September 7th, I'll be down there.
Very good. Also, before we get into the hardcore sports stuff, I want to talk about the Bucket Challenge, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge that I'm a big fan of. My big problem is a good cause, raising lots of money. That's a good thing. But my problem is that the people do it, and they don't donate the money. And if you're not going to donate the money to the thing, then what the hell's the use of it? So I propose an idea. If you do the damn thing, you say I donated this amount of money to this charity, whether it's ALS or not, and do it that way. So that because if you're not donating the money, then you're just a jackass putting the water on your head. Is this a good idea?
It seems reasonable to me.
Very good.
I think it's like a fad, like anything else. You get these crazes that go on social media. If somebody decides to jump off a cliff, everybody else is going to do it and take a video of it. And hey, I jumped off a cliff. Now it's your turn. So that's what I think.
Because I feel they're getting too far away from the actual. Because if you watch the Vikings game last night in the fourth quarter, Paul Allen, friend of the program, former guest, should be on later today. He did it. He mentioned the ALS challenge, whatever the hell. He didn't mention what it was for, why he did it, what it was about. He didn't mention this was, donate money to it. So if you're just some guy like Grandpa Christoph was watching the Vikings game at 10 o'clock last night, and you're seeing this guy get dropped doused in water for ALS, you're like, what the hell is this about? Should they not do a better job of explaining this?
Travis, are you trying to tell me that when someone wrote on Facebook that we should feed the children in Africa, and I like that status, that didn't change anything in the world? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I think it caused Ebola. I'm more aware of the Ebola outbreak now. I'm more aware of Ebola. That doesn't mean I'm going to donate to it or help the cause. I'm more aware of ALS now. I'm not aware of the particulars, but it's in the news. I'm more aware of the disease itself, but I haven't donated. I haven't dumped water on anybody. I haven't had water dumped on myself. So it's good that they're raising millions of dollars. However, if you're not donating, then it's kind of a waste of time. So that's my take on it. Nathan Stacken, enlighten us. Break that down, please.
I have no break for you.
As always, thank you very much.
I'm not in the yellow room tonight.
Well, that's good. You still got a goddamn mirror in the background, but still, we're working day by day.
It's a window. Let me switch that up here.
Okay, there we go. Get under that tent. The other big news: the Stacken nuptials next week. You're getting married, I hear.
14 months.
14 months. What is this? Let's do some quick math.
October.
October. Do you have a set date?
It's most likely October 17th. So exactly 14 months to the day.
This is a Saturday?
Yes.
October St. Patrick's Day.
Exactly.
What do you know the location yet?
I do not. No, we're still working that out, and we'll be sure to notify everyone via an announcement on the Sports Lounge here.
Possibly.
You're getting married during football season? What the heck?
Stacken.
I have no say in the matter except that I will be one cool dude because I will probably be sweating to death if it was in the summer.
We'll have an Indian summer. It'll be like
They do have indoor weddings.
They do. They do.
What are you talking about? Explain this.
And I will like to say that it said we cannot do it during March Madness. That was the most important thing. And
that's a good thing. Hopefully that's a bye week for your Vikings.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree.
It could be Hobo Day.
Yeah, it's darn close. I know that.
So if you want to have some...
2015 yet, have they?
Huh?
They haven't set Hobo Day for 2015, have they?
Not to the public.
I'm sure they have it.
Behind closed doors, I would say, probably. But I would say you could go to the new facility there, maybe rent out the new Jack Rapids indoor complex there.
There you go.
$100,000.
And if you want alcohol, you got to go to the Dyke House Center. You can't have it in the stadium. You can have it about 5 feet just to the north there of the goalpost, but you can't have it in the stadium. It can be a sponsor for the radio broadcast, but God damn it, if you students bring in alcohol, go to hell. We don't like that. So,
no fun. No fun zone.
No. Go to hell if you like it. We'll have a website of some sorts, a countdown clock. I'm sure that'll be going up. It's been a long dream of mine to do a pregame Super Bowl thing of sorts at a wedding. I think that would be a whole hell of a lot of fun.
We could that blast. I would totally get in on that.
A 5 or 6 hour extravaganza. You got a guy by the altar 6 hours before it's getting ready.
I don't think to do anything on the day anyway. So I mean,
you don't have to do anything on the day.
I would be able to help do the broadcast with you.
Well, you have to get married that day.
Except that.
Okay, never mind.
We could have somebody at the hotel wherever Stacken's at. We interview them. Hey, how you doing? You know, that's one of the first interviews you knock out early in the pregame show. And then we have a couple, pre-made 10-minute long features on.
It's a Super Bowl broadcast.
Right.
Pull out all the overs and unders and betting lines on things that are going to go down that day. Give our predictions.
Yep.
Ed also broadcasting live. He'll be.
Then similar to a Super Bowl broadcast, you can see the champagne be squirted all over at the end of the night in the locker room there. So.
I like this. Get this going.
Is that a sex joke?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Well done. 15 minutes in, we'll talk sports now, I guess, since that's kind of what we do. I want to get to Traxler's thoughts here. Mr. Shattenkirk struggling at the moment here. Audio,
I think I got it now.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
You sound the best that you've ever sounded right there.
Go jump off a cliff, Traxler. Come on.
There we go.
It's brutal on me right now, asshole.
Thoughts here on... Yes, Marcus.
You do sound the best you've ever sounded. That is true.
That is not a lie.
Ominous voiceover narration guy voice.
Last week I jumped on the Kansas City bandwagon after a couple years here of stacking, prodding, and talking shit about Kansas City, how much he likes them. And now they appear to be worth a damn. They lead Detroit by a game and a half in the Central with under 40 games to go. There you go, supporting the hometown team.
Yep.
On a hell of a roll. They've won 8 of 10. They beat the Twins 2 out of 3. I don't know how they lost a game with the Twins. Anybody else buying Kansas City here? Anybody on the Kansas City bandwagon? Guy from Reading Rainbow, go ahead.
I am LeVar Burton. I am LeVar Burton. There we go. There.
Are they legitimate? Are they legitimate?
I think they are. I mean, they've made it this far. Isn't that that makes you legitimate?
So far, they've made it 120 some games in the season, and they are in first place. Okay.
Royals in first. I mean, it's a phenomenon, really.
Mr. Shattenkirk.
I would like to think it was going to last, but I just don't see it. I think the Tigers still have too much. The Royals are the Royals. They're going to find a way to fuck it up. They might Well, wild card maybe, yes. I don't know. That lineup scares me. They can be really streaky. If it happens, it happens. It'd be nice, but I'm not buying stock just yet.
Me and Charlie were really big fans last week of hoping that Detroit either misses the playoffs completely or we get some sort of a Detroit-Oakland one-game playoff, since these are the two teams that made the big trade for the pitchers during the trading deadline here about 2-3 weeks ago. Currently, you have Detroit out of the playoffs. You got Seattle, the second wild card, and Oakland and the Angels. They came in today tied for first. Any other fans of a possible Detroit-Oakland one-game playoff?
Absolutely. I'd love to see that. Just the heavy favorite, because the Tigers were heavy favorites. Then the A's go in, get all this outstanding pitching, and now I'm still not a huge fan of their offense. And I think it would be great to see two teams that everyone talked about going to the championship series, having to play just to advance further in the playoffs.
I'd rather not see it.
Isn't this the year that MLB is going to screw itself if Oakland or the Angels, one of them is going to be in the wild card game? If they lose that game, isn't this the year where they screw themselves? Where the team that's probably going to have the second most wins in all of baseball, they don't even make the playoffs.
Good.
Screw 'em.
It's not good. That would be horrible. What are you talking about? The second best record has to go play one stupid off game, and if they lose, they're out. It's fucking retarded.
Would that be a nice legacy?
Now.
Would that be a nice legacy for Bud Selig to end on?
His legacy's already complete shit anyway, so why not?
His legacy was sealed in the 2002 All-Star game in Milwaukee.
Well, I don't know what to do. Shit. I don't know what to do. The game started. They put two extra innings. They've used 17 pitchers each. Ben Sheets can't pitch more than an inning. What are we going to do?
His elbow doesn't work.
Goddamn Torrey Hunter, if he would have made that goddamn catch.
Yeah.
That tight game, asshole. Jesus Christ. Anyways, new baseball commissioner, Rob Manfred, good old Bobby Manfred. Mr. Schottenkirk, what do we got in this guy?
It's complete horseshit again. It's one of the boys' club. He's been responsible for the getting the union contracts done, so good for him. The last couple we haven't had a stoppage in a while. It's just another move. It's been Selig's second-hand man for a while. There's no progress can be made. It's going to be 10, 15, 20 years of the same shit. Baseball, declining ratings. Yeah, it's very popular in the in your markets locally, but nationally it's suffering really bad right now. Be a good telltale sign this October. If you get big markets, we're going to see what the ratings are at. If it's as bad as I think it's going to be, it's that final red flag to say that they got to do something, otherwise they're going to lose a generation completely.
I just want to point out that we're like 20 minutes in and we've already set the record for single-person profanities in a single show. So we're doing good.
I figured I'd let loose since you can't see me, so you can't put a face on it.
But we know who you are and we can hear you better than ever.
Good.
Schottenkirk putting on a Bonds in 01 type of performance here early on. You're only about
very Wolf of Wall Street-esque. We're looking for Academy Awards for our amount of profanity.
Here you go, crank it up.
I'm interested to see Amon break this down in the baseball reference of Schottenkirk's website here. Looking at his slash line. 7 F-bombs, 2 goddams, 3 horses. What an all-star performance.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
All in the one.
In 15 years, he'll come back and say, hey, he should have won MVP.
Of the 20 people on this show right now, all 20 of them had MVP type seasons. So you have more
Drew Almond, he moved to Denver, Colorado, I see.
This is the breaking news.
Breaking news, stunning. We had no idea.
What's the breaking news sounder out?
Was it last week this happened?
Yeah. But, to be fair, not to sound like an insider, but I did know that was happening.
Very insider, submitted.
Sources close to me told me something along those lines.
Yes.
Any truth to the rumor? Maybe you have some sources there in Denver. Drew Almond responsible for that water main break last night.
In Mitchell?
No, in Denver. They had to cancel the Rockies game last night.
There was
The water main broke.
There was a water main break in Mitchell. I didn't know if you had sources here that were better than my sources in Denver.
Zach Borg told me.
Okay. Yeah, I think he probably was responsible for that water main break. I did see that they were delayed, yes.
Good. Speaking of the national ratings for baseball are not good and have been in a decline for 10, 15 years now. However, like Schottenkirk said, the national stuff, the Dodgers, the reason why they can spend $200 million a year is because they're going to get $2 billion here over the next 10, 20 years. So they have money to spend. Is that a big problem that the national viewership is not there, even though that the local ratings are very good and the local money coming in is at an all-time record high? Is that sustainable?
Short term, probably, but long term, that's not exactly something you want to set precedents with, because you're going to have those teams and you're going to get the markets that do have money, the TV deals they can spend. We're going to be back to where we were. You're going to have the Yankees or the Dodgers in this case dominate, and you're going to have Kansas City unless they get some random ass deal that we go back into being the Royals. But it's interesting. We'll see the next 2-3 years. There's several teams. That's Nationals and Orioles. Debacle is really interesting to me. That'll tell you a lot of what's going to happen with the entire market in the next 5 years or so.
There's been a lot of talk, I guess, because of the new commissioner, what needs to happen with baseball to make it better, to make it improve, to make people watch, to have a younger audience, a younger than 60 minutes type audience. We talk about how long the games take, 3 hours, 3.5 hours, if we're a 9-inning game. And they like to speed the game up, but I do not buy the prediction that if you speed the game up, more people will watch. If it's a 2.5-hour game, will Mr. Stacken watch more baseball? No, he doesn't give a shit. Why would he watch? So what is it? College football, probably you can make the case college football is the second or third biggest sport in the country, and they got the longest goddamn games you've ever seen. I don't think quickening the pace of baseball would make people watch anymore.
Make everyone take steroids and hit 70 home runs a year. That's when the ratings were the best. Force steroids on all the players.
And that may be it. I think if chicks dig the long ball, and if there's not a lot of offense going on in the game, not as many runs scoring, if a lot more pitching duels like we saw in the playoffs last year, people just don't get into that. They want to see a lot of points. They want to see runs, and most of all, they want to see action too. I think there's just not as much action in a baseball game, and maybe it's because there's no running clock. I think that's my issue with the game. It seems like it takes forever because they just stand around because there is no clock. And I understand that football, there's not a ton of action in it, but at least there's a 35 or 25-second time clock, and you can see a clock up in the corner counting down the seconds to the end of the quarter. It makes it more exciting. Baseball doesn't have that. That's
it's like
my big.
It's like New Year's Eve 100 times a day.
Yeah.
I don't think people would watch more. They like offense. Personally, I would prefer to see a great pitcher like a Clayton Kershaw or Felix Hernandez over the course of a game. I like to watch Mike Stanton. You started with Mike Stanton. Your name's Mike Stanton. I like watching him, but he's up 4 or 5 times. He's up for maybe 10 minutes a game. With Kershaw or Felix, they're going to pitch 7-8 innings. They'll be out there for 2.5 hours, so that's more appealing to me, I guess. Since I mentioned Kershaw and Felix Hernandez, ERAs both under 2. They both lost last night. Anybody want to get on their horse here? MVP for Kershaw or Felix Hernandez? Any one of them have a shot?
I think they both do, to be honest with you. Trout was kind of the runaway AL guy. The last week and a half, he's went into a pretty deep slump. No one's talking about it. He's down 285, whatever he's hitting. Obviously, that's probably still the guy, but if Felix and the Mariners get into the playoffs, he's going to have a legit case. I think Kershaw is pretty much a shoo-in if he continues to do what he has been doing for the next 6 weeks. Anything under 2 or around 2, nobody else makes a huge run. I think it's pretty much his to lose.
Anybody else want to thump the drum for a pitcher winning the MVP over, as you mentioned, Trout in the American League? In the National League, McCutcheon was probably a guy to consider, but he's been hurt the last week or so. And I would say Stanton, those Marlins are at 500, so I would say Stanton, he's got a good chance.
Doesn't that mean Marcus has to wear funky colored pants?
Very good. The Miami Marlins are at 62 and 62. Started off well, lost Jose Hernandez, went 4, 5, 6 games under 500. They're on a bit of a run now. They've won 7 to 10. We're in the dog stretch here. We got 6 weeks left. They're at 500. They got to win 82. Marcus Traxler sweating bullets.
How did you know? Right under the brow here.
Did we specify? Is it probably red pants? Since maybe green. Are they jeans?
The only thing I know is that I'm not a small man, and it could be difficult to find these different colored pants.
We can go up to Roslyn. We got people up there. Wyatt, you know people.
I don't think Wyatt owns green pants. He doesn't. I don't know.
He knows some people with some different colored pants.
All right.
Back in the day, my high school wore green pants, football pants.
Well, yeah, football. I mean, that's different. I wore purple pants when I played high school.
Well, those are basically tights.
Right. Well, let's see if the Marlins get to 82 wins, and then we'll talk about it.
Are you nervous at all here? Did you expect this to be done by this? Did you expect them to be 10 games under by this time?
Well, I did expect them to be under. 10 games would have been fine. They're not under. So we'll see how it all pans out. But yeah, it's a little surprising.
It's unfortunate. Because rarely these bets are so goddamn preposterous and unlikely to happen that we make that they never come true. So this one actually has a chance. So I advise everybody to root for the Marlins. When you can.
What do I get if they don't reach 500?
You don't get to win a pants.
The pure joy out of
Win-win.
ignoring stupid shit.
I get to make you do something.
I don't know. I'll let you talk soccer for 10 seconds here.
No, that's not negotiable.
That's not negotiable. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got the Marlins Traxler bet going on. Stanton, I think Stanton and Kershaw are my top two for MVP right now. I'd give it to Kershaw since they're making the playoffs. But Stanton, he's on a tear lately, may get to 40 home runs, and we are in an era now where if you hit 30 home runs, that is goddamn impressive. And also, Jonathan Lucroy for the Brewers, tremendous season. What I find interesting is the Brewers are still 2.5 games ahead of St. Louis here. And Yadier Molina, everybody loves Yadier Molina, but he's been hurt, and Lucroy's having one hell of a year, but he doesn't get near the credit that Yadier Molina has gotten. It still makes me pissed off the St. Louis fans how great they think they are. But is this just a case of nobody's heard of this guy, even though he made the All-Star team and he's in Milwaukee?
I think it's exactly what you said it was.
Very good. Here's the bet. You got to buy me a Lucroy jersey if you don't. If, the Marlins are under 500.
That doesn't sound like a win-win.
It is for me, so
No, I'm not gonna agree to those terms. I'll come up with something terrible for you to do.
We didn't mention this a couple weeks ago, but the ruling that came down from the courts, the NCAA, the changing of the Power 5 conferences, the 65 teams, they have an opportunity now to give more incentive to their players. They're not student athletes; they're called players because they play sports. They don't go to class. From what I read, there's a chance here with the Ed O'Bannon decision with video games and such. You can get as much as, $5,000 at the end of the time when your eligibility is up, due to all the marketing, all using your likeness. For that, you're given a certain amount of money at the end of your time once your eligibility is up. I like that idea. That's an idea that really has not been mentioned as far as how to play these players. Everybody's mentioned a stipend, a few $1,000s each year. But do you like this idea of putting the money in a big pot? Then once they're done playing, here's your $5,000, here's your $10,000. Thank you for us using your jerseys to make a whole shitload of money. Here's about 1% of 1% of that money for you.
I think that what the judge said, she recommended that they do that. I don't think they're required to do the 5,000. I think we can agree that. I think I'm okay with that. I think it makes sense to do it that way. I think however you do it, somebody's going to be upset and not happy about it because that's the way life is. But I think certainly, I mean, ultimately I fall on I think they should get something for it and probably a little bit more. I think times it sounds a little odd that, let's say, guys from Stanford are complaining when they're going to get a degree that's worth maybe $500,000 or something like that. But ultimately, I'm on the side of the players should get something, and I'm okay if it works out like the judge lady said.
Marcus Traxler.
Judge Judy was presiding in that case, isn't that right?
That's what I thought.
Okay. I mean, I think that, yeah, regardless, I guess it depends on how you look at it. I don't think that the players, I don't know how I want to say this, there's not as much money there being made off the actual players from a video game. I mean, I understand that if you bought NCAA Football 14, you bought it knowing that Johnny Manziel and number 2 from Texas A&M at quarterback were basically the same player. But I also think that the colleges, I mean, they are the ones who are rolling in the money. I don't think the NCAA makes it a buttload of money aside from, having their name on it.
What about more athletic apparel, jerseys, hats, shirts?
Right. I think that's certainly the place where this should be compensated. And I just think we're going to end up running into a big time issue that will basically be swept under the rug, in that you're going to have volleyball or water polo or tennis. I mean, these people are going to want their cut of money.
I don't get that.
Even though they aren't, I mean, they're nowhere near as valuable as somebody who plays football or men's basketball.
Yeah, that's where it's going to get really interesting to me, is where there's so many places you can cut the line at. I mean, you could cut the line at only the players that are really good. They're probably not going to do that, and they'll do that. All football players are going to get paid. But if you go sports that generate money, then it's really only football and men's basketball at almost everywhere. I don't know if that'll go over well. You're probably going to have to at least do it for the, I forget what they call it, the full scholarship sports, the ones where you have to give a full scholarship. I would imagine that maybe they'll have to do it that they give all of those guys money. But I don't know. I think that it's probably going to stop where, the scholarship equivalency sports like golf and tennis and bowling are probably not going to be getting money necessarily. At least to me, I would imagine it's going to go that way. But like Traxler said, there's so many different ways. It just depends, Like if you're cutting a piece of a pie, it just depends where they want to slice it and where they want to say, okay, all you guys are getting left out.
I don't understand the argument like the volleyball, the wrestling, whatever sports. I don't understand why should those players be paid? They don't generate any money. If you generate money, you should be paid. If you don't generate any money, you shouldn't. Their coaches get paid less.
I completely agree, but I don't think that's going to keep this thing from popping up. I still think that you're going to have this argument made, and I don't think it's really the most valid, but we're going to hear it, and there's probably going to be some sort of lawsuit that entangles these universities into this more than ever. And believe me, these universities can certainly spend money on lawyers and lawsuits, but I mean, if you're somebody who really loves, NCAA football video games like myself and Charlie, I think, I don't think that's going to help bring the game back.
No, it won't, and that's what I'm most sad about.
Like, these sports already get gyffed or screwed the way it is. based on travel, taking a bus halfway across the country instead of flying like with football or basketball. The coaches get paid less. They don't get as many scholarships in certain sports. There's the volleyball team that has a similar number of players to the basketball team. Do they get the same number of scholarships that are worth the same amount? I would say no, they do not. So I don't know why everybody has to get an equal part of this pie since they're not getting an equal part right now. And pretty much the market shows how much you're going to get paid. And obviously, you can have a football coach making millions of dollars. Then you can have a volleyball coach making $40,000. So it's already in place. I don't see why they have to say, well, everybody has to get something here. Why would you give track something? Nobody cares about track. Nobody goes to track. They don't sell any tickets. They don't buy any merchandise. Track. Get out of here.
And the complications for Title IX could change this too, where it might be that if you're only going to pay the football and men's basketball players, that you have to pay the same number of women's athletes too. I don't know if it'll work out that way, but because of all the whole thing's so complicated because the NCAA isn't even in charge of college football in the first place, and that's what makes this complicated. It's the conferences and the presidents, and just there's not the one guy or the one place where they can do this, and that's what makes this all difficult to deal with and why they have to have multiple court cases about it.
The NCAA is about as worthwhile as the U.S. government, in my mind.
Boom. What I enjoy.
To be fair, the NCAA didn't kill the Nazis. As far as I know, they didn't kill any. But
and the government has a post office, so that is useful in some sort.
I want my Saturday mail delivery.
Right, your local congressman, right there. But when people make the argument, well, everybody should be paid, and then they say, well, does the volleyball player, do they work any less hard than the football player, or does the basketball player, does he work harder than the wrestler? It's not about how much you work or how much time you spend into it. If the person that worked the hardest and spent the most time with their job got paid the most, you'd have a whole different economic system and different people would get paid. The people that are working their asses off don't get nearly as much as the people sitting in the goddamn offices all day. So it's not about how hard you work. It's just based on what is the market value, what can you provide, and if it's not deemed worthy, you're going to get paid less. And so that's a stupid argument based on how hard you work. That's not based on how much you get paid.
To add to that, what I see here is what confuses me is that it seems like college athletics more and more nowadays are about individualistic performances. And so why are we having this big fiasco over the team aspect when we see Johnny Manziel or what's his name, Jameis, right, for the Florida State guys. Well, anyway, I don't understand why they're making such a big deal out of it, because these guys, when they get that big, they really don't need anybody else to help them out. I mean, anything else is just extra, and it just seems like we're letting greed take over athletics.
It's a very small percentage of the teams that make money. It's a very small percentage of the 300-plus Division I teams that actually make a profit on top of making money. And it's a very even smaller percentage yet. What players are making the money? Is it the tight end for Texas A&M? Is it the cornerback for Florida State? No, it's the quarterbacks, it's the receivers, the running backs, whoever. So it's a very limited group of people making this money, and you got to share it with everybody, even though nobody cares about many of the other sports. On the same line with the Power 5 breaking away of some sorts or making their own rules here, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whenever this will happen. What sports does this affect? Does this really only affect basketball or football? What's going to be the big negative coming out of this if those Power 5 conferences go away and make their own rules, if anything happens?
Well, if you really want to take the negative look at it, and I don't know if it would work this way, but theoretically you could have it that, the Power 5 and Notre Dame is like 65 teams roughly. And it could be that they have their own division, like for basketball, so the March Madness tournament would be completely different because about half the teams in the March Madness tournament are not from the Power 5 schools. There's a whole bunch from, the American Athletic Conference and yada yada, Conference USA and all those other ones. So theoretically, it could work out that way, that it screws March Madness up, but that would only be if they completely broke off. As of now, it sounds like they have the power to enforce some of the things they want, but not all, and are still under the NCAA. But like you said, Kriens, it could be that 5 or 10 years from now they say, we don't want to do it this way. So, I guess only time will tell.
I think this really only affects football somewhat. Hopefully they don't touch basketball. That would be terrible. Since the wedding's not going to happen in March, maybe we can't have the wedding in March now, since the tournament's going to be shit. So maybe hold off on the wedding plans.
I don't want that. That'd be just terrible if March Madness got recognition. That's it.
Sucks ass.
That would.
You say March Madness sucks ass?
I said your microphone sucks ass.
Easy. No one's questioning the sanctity of March Madness.
Good. I was getting there.
I think breaking off for football, they are already basically broken off unofficially. It's not like teams in the Sun Belt have a chance to do anything, unless you're a handful of the Boise States or a team like Marshall this year, which should go undefeated because they don't play anybody. Unless you're one of 5 teams that may do something, it doesn't really matter. And then once this playoff, everybody sees this football playoff this year, and they go nuts for it, and they see how much money the networks are willing to pay, and they're like, God damn, maybe we should add a couple more teams and a couple more games and make a couple more $100 million. So, this will be an 18 playoff in 5 or 10 years, I think even before the contract is up for this current playoff. So, I think this really would affect the Boise States or any, if you want to call them a non-power conference team that can compete in football with the big schools. How does that affect the Boise State or insert whatever team here that's, a good football team but not in one of the big conferences? How does that affect them?
They're screwed. I mean, to me, if you're a Boise State and you can't compete in the Fiesta Bowl where you've made your name in these big games, I mean,
are they still allowed in the playoff though? How would that work?
I can't imagine that they would be. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I would say different rules. You're probably not going to be in it. You'll probably have some sort of second class of football teams. And I would imagine that these other schools would maybe take advantage. I'm thinking of a North Dakota State. If they really wanted to move up, that would be a place that they could move up to. And I don't know if South Dakota State would ever want to do that, but I think you're just going to have to create another division, and really the bottom part of FCS should be trimmed into its own thing anyway. So maybe you have more divisions of football. I know that's sort of the South Dakota high school way out, to just create more divisions, but I just don't see any way of going around this, because I just don't see these 65 teams really wanting to share the money any more than they have to.
Why can't you just have like high school football? Why can't each state just have their own college system? You can have SDSU play USD, play the School of Mines. You can play Northern. You can have Roosevelt jump on up to the college level here. Just have 50 different college systems within each state and do it that way.
I support that wholeheartedly, because I'd love to see a South Dakota State at Dakota State game. Just because, let's say they randomly draw who hosts these games in the first round, and you've got South Dakota State or USD heading out to play the Hard Rockers, sellout crowd. That'd be a lot of fun.
USD Springfield, this is your chance.
Let's go.
Get it going again.
Get the whole gang back together.
What
Are
would
you guys coming up for the presentation scrimmage here on the 30th?
I'm already up there. I'm in the parking lot. I'm getting it done. Presentation. Present me your football team. What would you say to
8 of them.
all 8 of them? We're gonna. If you come to the game, you get to play. How they got the seats. What would you say to anybody that wants to talk about, implications at the FCS level, specifically football, since that's what FCS is, how this affects them? Because I don't really think this does affect them. Marcus mentioned maybe, a team like North Dakota State moves on up if they reclassify, and there's a second lower level of football. But I don't see this affecting SDSU at all. So I think those local people are wasting their goddamn time talking about SDSU. And whoever else you want to put in there, because I don't think this affects them at all. It's not like they're up recruiting against the big schools, and they're so far removed from a Nebraska or a Minnesota, it's not even funny.
Right. Yeah. If we're wondering if it's going to affect, Texas El Paso or Marshall or Houston, or go right on down the list.
Rice. What about Rice?
Rice. What about Rice? What about Rice? Akron, Eastern Michigan,
Ohio, black jerseys.
Yes, can Ohio afford black jerseys? It sure as hell isn't going to affect SDSU or Illinois State or Oral Roberts, whatever.
What about the Sycamores? Goddamn.
Well, Sycamores might need to chop down a few more trees. I just don't see this being a big time impact. If you look at basketball. It's really only mattered. The NCAA has only really mattered to SDSU since they've gone Division I to getting their money when they go to the NCAA tournament and being a part of the NCAA tournament. They had to wait 5 years to be a real Division I school, and the NCAA doesn't like SDSU anymore after they only had about 4,000 people show up at a home football game in the playoffs. So. Outside of that, I mean, I can't think of any other real interaction that they've had, and it's just SDSU is just a speck on the radar when it comes to the NCAA Division I.
I would agree. I think the only thing it could affect SDSU at all, and this isn't necessarily from that, but it seems like some of these Power 5 schools are maybe looking at scheduling less FCS schools. So it might mean that instead of playing, Nebraska and Minnesota or Iowa State as often, they might have to play, I don't know.
The MAC schools.
Yeah, the MAC schools or Conference USA or Sun Belt or somebody like that.
Mountain West, yep.
Yeah.
You're playing Colorado State, you're playing Wyoming, you're playing, San Jose State.
Let's get that Wyoming matchup with Craig Bowl and Wyoming against SDSU.
Let's go.
Gets fired.
Well, I hope NDSU, I hope that happens. We have this split and NDSU still in FCS, because they'll demand a home and home. They'll be like, no, Wyoming's got to come to the Dome, and we're going to bring it to Bowl, and we're going to beat them 42-10. Like that. You know that I haven't been on Bisonville in like a year, but I'm guessing that that's probably what they're saying right now.
They're already talking about they're going to be able to get into the NFL. Even with people leaving, so.
How do your allegiances? You have strong allegiances to the Wyoming Pokes. How does Craig Bowl go in there? Noted NDSU hater Wyatt Roggenkamp. How does your allegiances to the Pokes change here with bald-headed Bowl heading west?
I've been a fan of Wyoming since the '04 Las Vegas Bowl when they beat UCLA.
Boom.
And I've
been more down times than up times.
I've suffered here the last 10 years, but I've been to Laramie a few times. I love the campus. I almost went to school there, but I chose SDSU obviously. But Bowl, yeah, Bowl. He already has changed the climate there. I've watched his media day videos and whatnot and interviews, and I think he's gonna establish what Wyoming used to be known for. There's a YouTube clip if you ever get a chance. It's back when Wyoming played Fresno State a couple of years ago in the something bowl, New Mexico Bowl, I think it was. But they stopped Fresno State 5 times in a row at the goal line, 4 or 5 times in a row at the one, and that's what Wyoming used to be known for: hard-nosed, disciplined football. Then when they got Christensen there and a few other of those knotheads,
Joe Glenn.
That holy-goly passing, throwing the football around. Foo-foo cake boy football.
Oh,
that's right.
Joe Glenn, double finger salute.
Guns up. Anyway, they tried the spread. They tried some West Coast stuff. It didn't work. So Bull's going to go in there. He's going to line them up, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. We're going to get back to the old school football. They're going to win games. You heard it here. I think Wyoming's going to be like a Boise State of old here in no time flat. A couple of years out, they'll be making some noise on the scene. So you heard it here.
The biggest problem for Wyoming is it is the least populated state in the country. So
they can't get anybody to go to school there. They can't recruit because nobody wants to live in the tundra at 7,000 feet where all there is to do is
nothing,
study or drink. And yeah, that's their main thing. I mean, Wyoming is the only Division I school in the state. So there's
I thought Yellowstone State had a pretty good school.
I think Wyoming needs to legalize marijuana so they can get all those Colorado kids to actually go to Wyoming then.
Well, speaking from experience about another state that only has one Division I school, that doesn't always work out real well. So, I mean, I think Wyoming, I think Wyatt's right. I think if they can establish themselves with a little bit of credibility as being a defensive-minded and I would say a run-first offense, that linemen are willing to get in a system, because a good lineman really does love to run block, and I think that would be an ideal situation for Wyoming. I think maybe a better comparison might be Fresno State as opposed to Boise State, where you become known for a specific style of football.
And more mustaches or what?
And the mustaches. And similarly to Pat Hill, I think Craig Bowl in Wyoming will be willing to play just about anybody anywhere. So
their schedule this year is absurd. They go to Oregon, they go to Michigan State. Yeah, that's unreal. So
I don't think he lasts more than 3 years. I think he goes on to a bigger job, even more.
You think so? You think this is a springboard yet?
Absolutely. He's looking for a Big 10, Big 12.
Nebraska.
Absolutely.
I don't know if he likes Nebraska anymore after getting run out of Lincoln a decade ago.
I believe it had to be a 2-for-1, did it not, to get Nebraska up to Wyoming?
Yeah. They played in Wyoming in 2011, and I think they played in Lincoln in, I think, 2010 and last year. When Wyoming had like 650 yards of offense.
And dang near beat them.
Speaking of the college ranks, Notre Dame's in a hell of a pickle. Numerous gentlemen in academic fraud situations, which is shocking, given the Notre Dame, the beacon of the North and the East and the South and the West. Are you a fan of seeing Notre Dame be run through the mud and made to look like jackasses?
Notre Dame hasn't been Notre Dame for at least 10 years, so.
Lou Holtz.
We put our pants on the same way they do, goddammit.
I think Notre Dame's going to go 12-0 this year and win the national title again.
They only play 11 games, Hildebrand. How are they going to go 12-0? Is this? I mean, it doesn't sound like any huge starters here. Maybe guys that would be starters this year. Is this? I mean,
there are there are a couple stars. They're
They got 4?
leading, yeah, 4 of them. One of them is their leading receiver, touchdowns and yards from last year. So that's a good blow for those fuckheads. But there's a couple defenders. It's comical that they classify themselves as the cleanest of the clean, and their fan base is always the one going after the SEC and all the other schools they get busted for infractions, and it's good to see them get caught. And it's more than 4; it's about 20 various sports. It's gonna the next week or so it's gonna pop here, so it's good to see them get slung back in their faces. So.
How's Brian Kelly's track record looking so far as deaths, scandals, and things that are not good?
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Some of those things you can make a pretty good case they weren't necessarily his fault, but they certainly happened under his watch too. And this is certainly going to be something where we find out how much Notre Dame really likes Mr. Kelly. Because they had, the kid that was recording that fell off the windy thing and unfortunately died. And then sometimes I get which school mixed up. I'm pretty sure that there was some sexual assault thing like a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And with this now, I mean, it's not been.
Teo.
They went to the. Well, I mean, that's embarrassing, but that's for kind of a different reason. But I mean, you could throw that in too if you wanted, I guess. I mean. It's certainly something that, they played in a national title game, and he gets credit for that. But, the school that always likes to pride themselves on doing everything perfectly and being better than everybody else at everything.
Are you sure they played in a national title game? Did they actually show up that night or not? I'm pretty sure they didn't show up until about 10 minutes left, so...
Teo spent the whole time with his girlfriend during the game.
There you go.
I think that Notre Dame. I know this isn't true, but Notre Dame would have said, "Well, we've always done things right," and we all know that's a load of crap. But they're the last team to, I think, really hang on to that. You look at, go through all the blue bloods: Michigan, Ohio State, Miami, Florida State. USC,
go to hell.
Oregon.
How about Nebraska?
Nebraska has had their issues. Oklahoma. I mean, you can go right down the list. Just about every major college football program.
Baylor football, the great tradition of Baylor football,
right.
Circa 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mike Singletary went there 30 years ago.
He can't even keep a pair of pants on.
My point is that Notre Dame was one of the last schools to really cling, pearl clutch, if you will, all these great morals that they had. We all knew it was a load of shit, and now it's kind of great to have it be proven.
Next week, college football preview. That's all we're going to talk about pretty much, unless somebody dies.
Oh boy!
So,
Ron Powless, 4 straight Heisman trophies.
Here we go.
I don't think that's going to happen. We'll see. So next week, tons of college football. We'll break down the conferences. So get ready for that. I heard the Vikings played last night. I heard their quarterbacks look tremendous. Thoughts from that game? What's the biggest takeaway? Nathan Stacken.
I think that, and I don't know if this is a huge deal, but it is of notice after what he did his rookie season. But Blair Walsh is really struggling. He's missed 2 field goals and now an extra point in the last 2 games.
Bring in Ryan Longwell.
I'm just saying I'd like to see a little more consistency from him.
He's concerned because the extra points aren't that long in the regular season.
He's no Fuad Revez, that's for sure.
That's for goddamn sure.
I think Castle's got a firm control of the starting quarterback position. See Teddy Bridgewater move down the field late in the game, lead that game-winning drive, but I would stick with Castle. I would not think about starting Bridgewater unless this team's gone horribly awry. They're 1-9, 1-8, whatever you want to say. Castle looks good. The offense looks good. The defense didn't look that great last night. But it's a continual work in progress, and now that training camp's done, we'll see if they can continue to improve up at Eden Prairie.
A.K. Winter Park.
How do you feel, David Shattenkirk? How do you feel about the quarterback?
I've never really been a fan of Castle. Obviously, USC guy, never played out there. There's a little bit of a connection, but in New England, he had one great year, sure. Kansas City, one pretty good year, several crappy years in between. Teddy's shown enough for me to at least have some sort of consideration. I don't think he deserves to be the starter. I think Castle has that week 1. But you get to week 4 or 5, and you're 1-3, 1-4. I would not hesitate at all to pull the plug and throw Teddy in there because I don't think they're making playoffs regardless.
Look at their 6 games, though. They have to go against Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan.
That's my point.
Yeah, and they're going to lose all those games.
That's my point.
It wouldn't matter if they had Teddy in there.
This season would be lost at that point. That's why you throw Teddy in and get him experience. Castle's on a 2-year deal. He might not even be here next year. He's going to go somewhere and get a long-term deal. Teddy's the guy.
Here's what I'll say. I don't think that there's a quarterback controversy. I think Castle should be the starter in week 1. I completely agree with David that I think once you get 4 or 5 games into the season, it's pretty clear that the Vikings won't be in playoff contention. I think that's what's going to happen, is that they're going to lose these games early. And I think then you let Bridgewater go. I mean, I try not to put a ton of stock into preseason football, but Bridgewater has looked good, and he's done the things that you need to do. Just dropping back and moving through the pocket. I hate to bring up Ponder all the time, but he's doing things that Ponder never did. Or sure didn't seem to do. And so I'm a fan of the way he's played so far. I understand it's against the second and third stringers, but to me it shows me that he's doing the right things, and he looks like an NFL quarterback that the Vikings desperately need.
As a non-Vikings fan, I would probably agree with Traxler.
I can't hear nothing.
Certainly, if the Vikings are undefeated with Castle, you got to keep rolling with them. But like you guys said, I would assume the Vikings aren't going to start out great. And if you're 2-5, there's probably you might as well throw the rookie out there they drafted him in the first round. If he's going to be your guy for the future.
Yeah, to me it just I do kind of feel bad for Castle because I don't think he's going to. I think at this point he's not going to start the whole season. So.
Yeah, but I don't think. I think the first 6 games, like I said, are so difficult. I don't think it would matter. So I don't. I know, yes, you would be 1-4, 1-5.
But you're not going to start Bridgewater in week 1.
No, and I don't want Bridgewater to start any game this season. I would rather see them wait, just learn under Castle. It's going to be a lost season anyway. But if they lose to the 5 of their first 6 games, Castle isn't going to be the reason why. It's going to be because Tom Brady and Drew Brees are going to shred the defense.
I felt that way where I thought it would be good for Bridgewater to sit behind it for a whole season. I no longer think that's the case because I think he would benefit from starting games, the offense being in his hands, and go from there. You okay there, Kriens? Can you hear us? No, he's a goner.
Yeah, he's doing his typical fade out. So.
All right, we are going to have a Sports Lounge Fantasy Football League again this year, second straight year of the Sports Lounge Fantasy League, and we should mention there will also be some sort of NFL pick group that will be against the spread, and we'll have the typical college pick'em, which is our longest running feature that we have. Any thoughts on that? I know we're all big fans of the college pick'em. Some of these other events.
Bastard Schottenkirk won them both last year.
He is an asshole.
I feel like I got to try to win one of them at least this year.
Not happening.
The target is on his back firmly, and I think everybody here will be involved, at least in the college pick'em, and you're all invited if you're watching to all 3 of those events. So when Kriens has here on our chat, when will the Sports Lounge Fantasy Draft take place? Not next Sunday, but I would say at some point between the 3rd and 4th preseason games. will be when we'll hold that fantasy draft. So put that on your tentative calendars as something to look forward to. Anything else anybody has before we probably will shut this down?
Doesn't the maroon backdrop of the stadium look hideous with the purple going on right now? I mean, it's just for the Vikings. I mean, it's just.
I'm having a hard time focusing my eyes in the end zone because I'm not used to the purple.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm not used to the Vikings being near the Vikings or the Gophers being near the end zone, and the fact that there is that purple in the end zone, and then you've got, like you said, the maroon padding on the end zone walls, and I think it's probably still a work in progress. I have tickets to a Gophers game when they play Northwestern later this season, and I'm very curious to see what the setup will be like. It's been a few years since I've been to a Gophers game, so it will be different. And I am seated in one of the temporary stands that they put up in the end zone for the Vikings during the Gophers game. So
I pay $5 for those tickets?
I did not pay $5, but I paid
something close.
I paid a little bit more than that, but yeah, I did not pay a ton for them, so that is good. But yes, next week we will have the college football preview. I will be fiercely studying the Phil Steele guide, which is out of my reach right now, but I will have some preparation ready for the show. A few more things, Wyatt. Summer County Fair Series. I know you were at the Brown County Fair this weekend. And I guess fill us in on the shows you've seen lately.
Thursday night I saw Kip Moore and Cassidy Bolt as a good show. And then you do a complete 180 last night with Willie Nelson. It's like you can't get any more different like crowd scenes. Like Thursday night you've got the younger crowd just rocking, noisy. And then Saturday night, it's like all the hippies that come out of the woodwork. So it was fun.
I don't have tickets for this, but Thursday here, Corn Palace Festival starts, and Chris Young playing the Corn Palace.
Very nice.
Among the other shows, Pat Benatar and Neil Giraldo on Friday.
Hit me with your best shot.
There it is. Crystal Gale on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Tommy James and the Shondells.
That's a fucking lineup right there.
That's a lineup. So I don't think I'll make it to any of those shows, to be honest. I mean, Chris Young, I'd be fine seeing, but not at tickets starting at $40 inside the Corn Palace. But Corn Palace Festival this week, the big time here in Mitchell. So that's good. And then a Summerslam preview for one. Mr. Schottenkirk, go ahead.
Oh boy, should be a good night. Los Angeles, like usual. All the big guys are there. Hogan's back. See what happens backstage segment. If he's going to come out and pawn the WWE Network off on everybody, or try to, anyways. The card itself is pretty good. John Cena, Brock Lesnar's your main event. I think everybody pretty much expects Lesnar to win that. Wouldn't be a complete shock if Cena were to have the belt at the end of the night. Other really big, interesting matches: Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton. Roman Reigns, kind of a guy that's came out of nowhere the last year and a half, and kind of had a meteoric rise. That probably continue tonight against Orton, beating him. Orton's my guy. I'll be cheering for him, but if he loses, I won't cry like I did when I was 14. Other than that, there's a couple more interesting matches. It'll be easier. If anybody else follow them more, I won't bore you with the details, but it should be a good night. And
all right, thank you.
Fuck you. I've got the pre-show. I've got the pre-show on now, so I'm enjoying myself.
The what type of hint are you dropping with Ronda Rousey being at SummerSlam? What do you think could happen then?
She's just in attendance. I don't think anything's going to happen storyline-wise. She just happens to be in the building tonight, and all the wrestling geeks are freaking out. But
well, what I would say is that she can't fight UFC forever. Maybe there's wrestling in her career. I don't know.
It's very possible. You saw Lesnar do the same thing, go back and forth. Lesnar was in WWE before he went to the UFC, but if Rousey ends up in the WWE someday, I would not be shocked in the least.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
What?
Time to go. The show's over.
Show's over. Gotta go.
God damn it. Give me a Ronda Rousey storyline heading into next. She's not going to wrestle at WrestleMania, very likely, but give me something that would be intriguing. How would you book Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania next year?
She called out the girl that's going to be Wonder Woman in the Batman vs Superman movie, and they're going to fight each other in a super mega pay-per-view event.
You thought about this?
If they were actually to use her, and if she was actually going to be signed into this, I think the only way they could do it is have Stephanie McMahon kind of run over and control the women's division. She's got the match against Brie Bella tonight. There's been a lot of people for a long time, myself included, that have wanted to see her in the ring more. Obviously, she's pretty much the CEO of the company effectively right now. But she was, all things considered, she was very good back in the day, and that would be something to have that build up and have them face off at WrestleMania next year. But I highly, highly, highly doubt anything like that will happen.
How long does Brock Lesnar hang on to the title?
Well, that's interesting considering he's going to be still part-time and just show up for the big events, which is just stupid. But if he wins it tonight, I don't see there's any way that he drops it until maybe the Royal Rumble, and then that wouldn't make any sense, though, if you're going to build that. And he's already been rumored, pretty much guaranteed the main event next year at Mania. But I don't see him dropping it anytime soon if he wins it tonight.
You assume a rematch next month's pay-per-view, Cena and Lesnar?
Yeah. I think storyline-wise, I've been reading something that would make more sense, too. Having this network trying to get people interested, you'd rather have Cena chasing the belt versus defending it for people to get into it and think about buying it for that cause the lead up the next month or so. But I'd probably put it at 80-20 that Lesnar wins tonight.
Who does he face? Let's say you give him 2 title defenses after September before WrestleMania. Who does he face?
That's the big question, and one that I really don't have a great answer for. The whole thing is messed up that they got that their main event next year basically leaked already. I would assume, I don't know what's been going on with Orton. There's been a couple of things personality-wise and a couple of things, him calling out fans and getting in trouble again. Otherwise, he could be thrown back into the picture. But if Reigns beats him tonight, I don't see how that work. I don't know if you want to push Reigns this early and save him for Mania's his big coming out party next year, but we'll see.
Very exciting stuff. I know Marcus, he'll be watching. Follow along at Marcus Traxler on Twitter. He'll be live tweeting SummerSlam all night long. So that's why we did the show at 5:30. You got to get off the air by 7 to watch it. So plenty of good things to look forward to. Very quickly, give me go person to person your favorite SummerSlam moment. Oh.
Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels ladder match.
Well done, Marcus Traxler.
Last year.
Nathan Stacken, impress me.
I have something else instead. January 31st, mark your calendars. K-Love returns to Minnesota as the Cavaliers take on the Timber Puppies.
God damn it.
In other news, the funniest sports world hashtag Ask Jameis last week. That was outstanding. Couldn't have gone worse for Florida State or Jameis Winston. The crab leg questions. Thought that was very good. And favorite SummerSlam moment, I would have to say it was probably 3 years ago when Brock Lesnar did something to someone.
Close. Mr. Roggenkamp, give me a good Brock Lesnar story.
I haven't watched wrestling since
a Lesnar brother story. A Lesnar brother story.
You know what the legend goes around here is his brother's meaner than he is. So I'd like to see him and his brother on a pay-per-view event. That would be pretty good. But I like Hulk Hogan. I like anything he does. So probably last time I watched wrestling consistently, I like to see Hogan tear it up. So.
Very good. What did you see Raw there, David, last night? The longest Raw known to man. How was that final segment? I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was great. Going back in some of the verbiage and everything that was going down, I really liked it. But it was 10-15 or so before they wrapped, and that's the longest one I can ever remember, to be honest. especially with the 3-hour format. It was quite something. The last 2 or 3 weeks, there's been several segments that have really got the juices flowing of maybe a turn back to what it was 10 or 12 years ago, but I might just be getting my hopes too high on that.
We'll recap SummerSlam next week. We'll all watch. We'll all share our memories of the show. And as I mentioned before, the college football preview extraordinaire. So everybody get your jocks on, get your nut cups ready. It's going to be a little bit wild. So we'll have our picks for each conference. We'll have the national title picks, Heisman Trophy, all that good stuff. So be prepared. Plenty of college football next week. Any final thoughts? There are no final thoughts. With that said, Nathan Stacken, show this Tuesday, yes or no?
Yes, sir. 4:30.
4:30 to 6. Where can they listen?
90.7 KSDJ. Also listen live at ksdjradio.com.
That never works, though.
It works sometimes.
Nah. No. Not
Does
even sometimes.
Kriens is able to listen sometimes. I know he can.
I'm able to listen. I listen to the
So
program.
it would be
as always.
It would be a user error then versus a website error.
Whoa,
So you're saying it's my fault?
we got a feud going here.
Sometimes.
That's a good way to drive away your listeners.
This is America. It's always somebody else's fault.
All 5 of his listeners to begin with.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
A half dozen, and hopefully we'll get everything working good for the show and then for this upcoming year.
2 of Minnesota's finest here, Stacken and Roggenkamp, living in South Dakota, going at it, butting heads. Is this the next Austin Rock? Tune in next week for the next development. For Charlie Hildebrand, for Marcus Traxler, for Nathan Stacken, for David Schottenkirk, for Wyatt Roggenkamp, for Drew Hammond's Busted Water Main. I'm Travis Kriens. We appreciate you watching and listening to the 79th Sports Lounge. Next week, big college football preview, the 80th edition. Marcus, where are we going to be at?
We're going to be inside the lounge.